Yo, what is up guys, your boy IzuKage here with part 3 of What If Naruto Was Loki. So it's been a while since I've done this series, so I don't have much to say. Let's just get right into the what if. So we start this what if off where we left off last time with Izuku going through one of Kurogiri's portals and ending up in the LOV's hideout. And when he arrived, he sees Bakugou just chilling at the bar drinking some orange juice. And Izuku, he tried acting natural, since he's still in disguise. So Shigaraki, he walked up to the counter and slammed his fist against it and said, "Those damn heroes, I'll kill them all!" And Bakugou was just sipping his orange juice like, chill out bro, it's not that deep. Shigaraki then turned to Bakugou and said, "I think it's about time you got some villain work done around here. And we'll see how that pyrokinesis quirk treats you in the real world." And Bakugou hearing this seemed happy on the outside, but soon realized that this is gonna be the perfect time for him to escape. So yes, Bakugou's quirk that he got from All For One was a pyrokinesis quirk. So later that night, while Bakugou is settling into bed, Izuku still looking like his villain self, like the body that he transformed into at the USJ, he snuck into Bakugou's room and Bakugou said out loud, "Who is it?" And then he made a fireball in his hand. And Izuku lifted his hands up and said, "I'm not your enemy." And Bakugou, him seeing Izuku, he went off guard and said, "Oh, you. I heard you were the only survivor apart from Master and Kurogiri, of course." And Izuku didn't say anything but came closer to Bakugou and said, "I know you're not really a villain." And Bakugou said, "Huh? What do you mean?" Then Izuku started communicating with him telepathically and begins to explain how he's actually Izuku and he's come to take these villains down. And Bakugou was completely taken aback by this. He wanted to fight Izuku right here and now. I mean, that's what all of this is about. That's why he spent months working under these villains just to get a one-up on Izuku. But Loki, who's able to read emotion, says, "You can beat my ass later," pause, "but right now we need to get out of here." As they were talking, Shigaraki walked into the room and said, "Hey, what are you doing in here?" And Izuku froze and turned around and said, I heard a loud noise, so I came to check it out." And Shigaraki was suspicious, but that's the same reason he come up here, so he said, "Alright," and walked out. Izuku soon followed behind him, and let's fast forward to the next day, with Shigaraki, Kurogiri, and Bakugou all gathered at the door ready to head out. And Izuku, he came into the room still transformed and said, "Hey guys, what up?" And Shigaraki said, "What do you want?" And Izuku responded, "I thought I was coming with. What happened?" But Shigaraki, he's confused. He's never said this to Izuku. He said, "No, you're staying here." And Izuku turned around and said, "Oh well, I was leaving anyways." And Shigaraki was confused, like, "What do you mean by that?" And Loki disappeared, and in this confusion, Bakugou used fire to wrap flames around Shigaraki and Kurogiri, stopping them from moving. Then Izuku reappears and says to himself, "I hope this works," and he concentrates deeply. Then a bluish force field surrounds both Kurogiri and Shigaraki, and Izuku smiled and said, "You two are gonna be gone for a while. See ya." And they disappeared from the room. So we switch scenes to a high security prison like the one All For One was locked in, and Kurogiri and Shigaraki appear in a quirk cancelling cell. So when the guards eventually realize who these people are, they would get locked into, proper prisons, and they would tell this to different hero agencies saying these high level villains have been captured. So back to Izuku, he says to Bakugou, "Good work," but Bakugou scoffs and says, "Ugh, like I needed your help." And Izuku waved him off and said, "Sure you did," and laughed. And Bakugou said, "Who the hell are you laughing at?" And he threw fire at Izuku, and the fire acted like a whip and wrapped around Izuku, restraining him. And Bakugou walked up and said, "With my new quirk, I'll finally be able to beat you." And Izuku said, "Sometimes it's funny how dumb you are." And Izuku fades away into thin air, leaving him alone in the bar. And Bakugou screamed out Izuku's name in anger. And Izuku is just outside walking away, just smiling. So because of the USJ attack, the school is put on break for a week, but when the students finally return, Izuku and the others are sitting in class when Aizawa actually announces the arrival of a new student. And in walks Bakugou. Aizawa begins to explain how Bakugou has been captured for 9 months by villains, so, they should treat him kindly, yada yada yada. Bakugou, he just made up some story. So when he went to sit down, he sat really close to Izuku, and Izuku turned around in his chair and said, "I didn't expect to see you in here this soon." But Bakugou, he kept to himself without even giving Izuku a glance. So the day goes on, and after lunch, Aizawa, he's supposed to be in class to teach the students more about history. That's the subject they left off on. But when it came lunchtime and lunchtime was over, no one was in class. Well, except the students. No teacher was in class. But that's when All Might came into class and he said, "Coming through the door like a normal person." And he goes up to where Aizawa would usually teach the class, and he begins to speak that Aizawa had some important business to attend to, so he left him in charge of his class. And everyone was actually excited to see All Might teaching them, because they heard it before, but they didn't think it was real. They thought it was just some rumor someone made up. But they would come to soon hate Aizawa because he left All Might with a test for them to do. And when they heard this, they're like, "Oh my god, typical Aizawa," to be honest. They shouldn't have been surprised. So All Might instructs them to get their hero gear, which, opens up, the walls open up to reveal their briefcases with their names on it. And they all grab it and go to the lockers to change. So everyone meets up again at the observation room with All Might, and Izuku, he's looking around, and all these hero suits, they're pretty cool, but not as cool as his. Izuku is wearing sort of a royal gown similar to what Loki would normally wear on Asgard. Bakugou, seeing what Izuku is wearing, he chuckles and says, what are those horns on your head? Are you a goat or something?" And Izuku just remains quiet and just hopes that he's gonna go up against Bakugou to finally show him once and for all who's the strongest. So Ida asks Izuku, how are the teams gonna be chosen? Is it random? Is it based on their quirk power? And yeah, he says it's completely random. I'm gonna be drawing from a box, and Ida is like, okay, there are definitely smarter ways to do it, but you do you, All Might. So he picks from the box, and the first team to go up is Bakugou and Ida versus Izuku and Uraraka. And Bakugou, hearing these matchups, he can't wait. He says it's clobbering time. And if you guys don't get that reference, then I honestly don't blame you. Most of the movies for that series aren't that good, and most people don't read comics, so yeah. But anyways, onto the battles. So Bakugou and Ida, they enter the building first, just to set up everything they need for their villain defense. And while they're doing that, Izuku and Uraraka, they plan their strategy. And Izuku, he's just letting Uraraka talk. She has out this paper of the blueprints of the building. She's marking areas that they should probably go and cover. And Izuku is like nodding his head like, like he's listening. And while she's finished explaining, Uraraka is like, got that? And Izuku says, no. Yeah, there's a really easier way for us to finish this. I just teleport in, touch the bomb. It's that simple. And Uraraka is like, wait, you can teleport? But before Izuku could explain any further, All Might said, now it's time for the hero team to move in. So Izuku, he says, I'll explain later. And Uraraka, she's following him into the building saying, no, it's important, just tell me now. And as he's about to go up one of the stairs, he just disappears from in front of her. And Uraraka is just standing there alone like, oh my god, this guy. So Izuku, he teleports up to the bomb room, but Bakugou this time knew of Izuku's teleporting abilities and what he might do. So he appears in the bomb room, and Bakugou is like, I knew it. And he tells Ida to keep running around the bomb so he knows that Izuku can't get it. And he he, as in Bakugou and Izuku, start getting into a fight, with Bakugou using his pyrokinetic abilities to launch flames around Izuku, stopping him from moving anywhere. But as soon as Bakugou thinks he hasn't captured, Izuku just disappears. And he reappears behind Bakugou and punches him in the back, and this sends him flying because Izuku's punches are really strong. Izuku kept playing around with Bakugou, and Uraraka finally made it up, and she looks into the room and sees 6 different Izukus surrounding Bakugou, and Uraraka said, "Just get the bomb already." And one of the clones turned around to her and said, "Why don't you do it? It's all yours." So Uraraka, she runs up to the bomb, but Ito was still defending it, but not for long, when one of Izuku's clones got into a fight with him, leaving the bomb completely wide open for the hero's swift victory. So All Might comes over to the intercoms and says Hero Team wins. And with that, they all return to the observation room, and All Might, he has a few tips or advice for the people that just went, like the heroes and villains. He says how Izuku, he needs to be more efficient and stop playing around with the villains, or else they could have, something else in store for him. While Bakugou, All Might said he's too hot-headed and he should have a clear mind when fighting, or else it could end up bad and him losing the fight altogether. So after all the critique was finished, all the other students went to have their fights, and they got some critique as well. But soon they all finished and returned to classroom, with Aizawa there waiting for them, and he was observing this entire time, and he had his own sort of advice for the students because he knows them more than All Might, so he knows how he could change them and make the advice that All Might gave them stick even better. So after that was all said and done, at the end of the day, Aizawa told the students about the upcoming sports festival, and they were all interested in this because the way how Aizawa was explaining it is because this is what everything they've been doing thus far is leading up to. Everything they've trained for, their powers, just this is where it comes to fruition. Basically, they'll be scouted by heroes to join the hero agencies, and this is where they can build their hero career. So the students took no time off for the 2 weeks leading up to the sports festival. They trained both mentally and physically, becoming the peak versions of themselves. And for Izuku's training, he would normally do some light reading as soon as he wakes up. And for the entire day, not do much else because Izuku, he's been using these powers, well, Loki, he's had these powers for thousands of years. So there really is no refining to be done if we're being realistic. While someone like Bakugou, he completely trains his physical body. He gets a gym membership and starts pumping iron every single time he can. And not only does he do that, he doesn't forget about his quirk as well. He trains that too. And he would normally go to a nearby forest or something, which is, let me just say this now, a bad idea when you have an explosion and a pyrokinesis quirk. But he made it work, and soon enough Bakugou and all the other students in 1A were ready for the sports festival. So we fast forward to it, and everyone, they come into this huge arena, and people in the stands, they're cheering, they're excited for the match to come because no sports festival in any of the previous years has not been entertaining. So everyone looks forward to this, kind of like how people in the real world look forward to the Olympics or something like that caliber. So the students are lined up, and Midnight, she is talking to everyone in the crowd, getting them really excited for the events to come. And then she calls upon the class representative for 1A, and this being Izuku. So he starts walking towards the podium where Midnight is at, and everyone from the different classes, some of them are impressed by Izuku's ability. Well, they don't know it yet, but he has to be strong to be considered class representative. That means he got the most points in the entrance exams. And some others are looking at Izuku with sort of hatred, like, who does this kid think he is? Just because he has some special quirk, he's getting this treatment. So Izuku, he goes up to the podium and he starts speaking to all the students and the people in the stands. And the thing notable that he says is that he is going to win. And he's not saying that as being confident, he's stating it as fact. So Izuku, he hands the mic over to Midnight, and everyone, well, not everyone in the stage, but the people who are the different students, they are angry at Izuku like, oh, how are you supposed to declare that you win when they haven't even started? Oh, you're so cocky, yada yada yada. But Izuku just walks back to his class and just chills with them, and soon enough, Midnight, she starts choosing the different obstacles that they're gonna face. First off is the obstacle race, second is the Calvary battle, and last, she doesn't pick this but it happens every year, is the 1v1 battles. So she has everyone go to the first stage, the obstacle race. So they all get ready, some go back into the waiting area to get changed because they were still in their school uniform. So once they do get into their PE gear, they head to this cave entrance sort of thing where everyone is piling in. There are a bunch of students in there waiting for the race to start. So as they're waiting, there's no sign that they're ready to go until President Mike comes over the intercom and says, "What are you waiting for? Go, go, go!" So as everyone was ready to run out, Todoroki, he touches the ground and this freezes the entire floor, trapping people in place, with only certain people being able to escape. Either he can melt the ice, completely break through it, or phase through it somehow, become intangible, sort of like Mirio. And Izuku, he just punches straight through it because it really isn't anything compared to his strength. And for the first part of the race, he wants to keep it fair before, he just completely wins. So he runs alongside everyone, and soon comes these 0-point robots blocking their way. And Todoroki, he does his usual flashy thing, destroying the robots with his ice, and he gets up and over, the first one passing them. Next was Bakugou, who just flew through using his explosions and his newfound firepower, and Izuku just running through, being covered with one of his force fields so they can't hit him either ways. So when they reach the tightrope that is over this massive cannon, Todoroki uses his ice and slides over while Bakugou again flies over it, and Izuku just starts teleporting. And when people realize that Izuku can teleport, they're wondering why he just doesn't go to the end immediately. Maybe he has a range limiter on it, maybe it's a time limit, maybe some requirement stopping him, but it only makes sense just to teleport to the end. But Izuku, he doesn't until they reach the minefields, and Todoroki, he's having problems with this section, so he starts freezing this sort of road that he can walk and it doesn't detonate. But Izuku, realizing that Todoroki, he's basically at the end, he says, I've had my fun, and he just teleports to the end and comes first place, winning the 10 million point headband. Well, not really winning, earning the 10 million point headband. And people watching, they're wondering why he didn't just do that from the start. It just doesn't make sense. And Bakugou, who's like, that damn Izuku keeps playing around. And Todoroki, he was surprised by this actually. So when it came to the Calvary battle, everyone, they're still running in from the course, the race, and once they're all in, the leaderboards are made, and then they're told to just choose a team, choose whoever you want. There's no limitation, but the top 5 can't be on a team together. For instance, Bakugou can't be on a team with Izuku. That's just not fair. So Izuku, he wasn't trying to have anyone on his team because he knows they're probably gonna mess up. So who are better teammates than yourself? So Izuku, he makes clones of himself, 3 clones in fact, and they lift him up, so he's the rider while the clones are the ones supporting him. And Midnight seeing this is just like, I'll allow it, why not? So once everyone has their teams, Midnight starts the match and Izuku immediately puts up a force field around him and his clones, and no one can get in. And because this is one of his weaker force fields, it can last longer. So how it works is the stronger, more durable ones that can withstand most, if not any attack, those only last a few seconds. And those that are pretty weak, that if a nice combination attack like hit it, it would break, those can last for even days. So Izuku, he has sort of a medium one that's gonna last the entire length of the Calvary battle, and Izuku just sits there and enjoys the peace and quiet while everyone is just in the stands like, this kid, he's so cocky, but they can't really say much because Izuku, he's definitely strong. And they probably want him in their hero agency. So after basically sitting out the Calvary battle, after this they have some recreational games like treasure hunts, things like that, while everyone else who passed, they get ready for the next match. This is going to be the 1v1 battle. So they have lunch. Izuku, he sits with some of the few friends he've made. I wouldn't even go so far as to call them friends, just people he finds the most tolerance for in the class. They're not as annoying. And these are Uraraka, Ida, and Kirishima. So they're eating together, and Izuku, he finishes pretty quickly. He didn't really do much, so he wasn't that hungry in the first place. So once he gets up, he goes over to the stands, and he takes this short hallway. But in the hallway, he comes face to face with Endeavor. And Endeavor, he's mad at Izuku for some reason. He says, "You aren't gonna beat my Shoto." And Izuku is looking around like, who asked? And Endeavor says, "Don't disrespect me." And Izuku is just saying, "Bro, I'm just trying to leave. You're the one arguing with a child." Endeavor scoffs and says it doesn't matter because you're just gonna lose whenever Shoto decides to use my firepower. And Izuku, he's getting sick and tired of Endeavor already. He's provoking him Endeavor's provoking Izuku for no apparent reason. So he says, "You know what, enjoy your stay at Mount Everest." And Izuku just teleports him to the top of Mount Everest. So he has that to deal with. And Izuku, he just goes to the stands and sits with his class until it's his turn to go up and fight the 1v1 battles. But that is where I'm going to be leaving this one off. Thank you guys for sticking around to the end of the video. And if you liked it, like. And if you like my content in general, consider subscribing. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next What If.